what is champagne then?
Yeah. Well, champagne's a sparkling wine, but not all sparkling wine is champagne. I think that this is the absolute key to know because one of our roles in the market is to protect the name and its reputation. So we do fiercely guard the use of the word champagne. Champagne is a blended wine. So it's blended from a number of different areas or terroirs. So champagne is a wine. It's not just an imported wine. I think it is actually built into the fabric of who we are.
Today, we're going to take a deep dive into champagne with John Noble, Australia's Champagne Ambassador and the Director of the Champagne Bureau Australia. I'm Jason.
And I'm Trent, and we're here on an unapologetically unprofessional, unfiltered wine journey. And we're saying here, Jace.
Our saying is drink more, try more, learn more. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. John, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
We were just talking off air about all of the interesting things about champagne and the history with Australia. We are super excited to get into that. One of the things you just said was Australia's the 7th highest champagne consumer in the world.
The 7th largest export market for champagne in the world. But considering our population is small, you might find that we have one of the highest consumption rates.
Yeah, no, I'm not surprised. You know what? When we first started this podcast 2 and a bit years ago, I'd never thought I'd ever say I actually enjoy champagne, let alone rosé champagne. But things have changed since then. We've had quite a few tastings.
I think you still have to convert my wife. My wife is still a bit like that, going, I'll drink anything, but champagne, not yet.
Oh, sounds like education needs to happen.
My wife said the exact same thing. And so maybe this episode can help unravel a bit of the intricacies and myths
clearly
around
got some work to do.
And so before we do that, we're going to jump into the wind-up icebreaker questions. Trent's going to ask you quite a few standard questions. Here we go.
First one, John. Most memorable wine or most memorable wine moment?
So most memorable wine or memorable wine moment, I probably wouldn't point to a specific wine because I always think wine brings out the best in get-togethers and friendships and moment that kind of goes beyond what you drink. I don't have a particular favorite wine moment, but I've had so many memorable wine moments that are more linked to the people that you have.
You live a very full life.
Yes. Yes.
Fantastic. Next one. What's the last glass of wine that you had?
Well, I wanted to expertly bring this up to you because we did share. I was attended a Real Review masterclass less than a week or so ago, that was presented by Ewan Hook and Melanie from Giant Steps.
Yeah.
And I think these were some of the most fabulous wines that we've had. And I wanted to ask you, from that tasting, what was your most memorable wine?
I remember having Morris Domaine Naturaliste that kind of stood out for me. And there's another Chardonnay as well. What was it?
I don't remember the Chardonnay. I only remember the Domaine Naturaliste. Yeah. It was probably a highlight. Yeah.
Well, mine was the Oak Ridge Chardonnay from that particular tasting. And then the one that I have the most stars against was something I've never tried before, Fighting Gully Road Grenache.
Yes.
I thought it was really, really beautiful and wrote some really random notes about it. So it showed I thought a lot of things. But
So you drink much more than just champagne?
I love all the wines. Yeah. I love all the wines. I especially love champagne and have for a very long time. But I do appreciate wine. I don't mind whiskey. Yeah. And I was very fortunate to go to South Australia, Barossa, McLaren Vale and Adelaide Hills last year and tried some of the fortified wines that I think were the backbone of the Australian wine industry for the first 100 years of wine production in Australia. And like the taste I thought was I don't know if I would drink a lot of it, but I think the taste of it was very interesting.
Yeah, there's still something there about fortified wine. So we don't drink much of, but when you drink it, it's like something special.
Yeah, it's an interesting taste to have. So
next one. What's your favourite grape varietal?
So again, I probably wouldn't point to a favourite grape varietal. Champagne is predominantly made of 3 different grapes, and there are definitely Champagne Cuvées that I would say I really enjoy that make the most out of all of those, Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, and another one called Meunier. They all bring something different to the Champagne Cuvée, and they all have a different mouthfeel. So Pinot Noir dominant champagne's great with, an actual meal, roast meat, pork, steaks, hamburgers, whatever you like. But the champagne that we're going to try today, the Chardonnay dominant style, Blanc de Blanc style, very fresh, very elegant champagnes, perfect for Sydney rock oysters, for an aperitif, for breakfast with a croissant, if you want that kind of thing.
I feel it's tied to your first question. It feels like your favorite wine varietals depend upon the moment, the food that you're having.
Yeah.
Okay, next one. Person passed a present they'd love to have a bottle of wine with, and what bottle of wine would you pick?
Well, I listened to a couple of your podcasts and I thought you might ask that question, and I wasn't sure, so many people to choose from. I listened to Sarah Crowe, and her response to this was Julia Gillard.
Yeah.
And I had a rare chance to meet Julia Gillard, and she was a fantastic human. Would I like to have a glass of wine with her? Sure. I think she would be really great, or one of the, great. I come from a fashion background, so someone from that heritage, someone like Yves Saint Laurent or his muse, Lulu de la Falaise or Betty Catrou, one of those fabulous people, because I'm sure it wouldn't be just one glass.
Yes.
I think it would be, glass after glass, dance the night through kind of experience.
From champagne to wine to fortified.
Yeah, exactly. And to, all types of things in a discotheque late at night. So.
Okay. Unique or ultimate food and wine pairing?
Well, I have an answer for you for this one. I did have to think because I didn't want to rave on, because I have had the most exceptional experience with food and wine during my life and had some incredible meals. But the champagne moment meal that I had, I've had a couple. I've even bought a menu of one that I had recently, but I had by a Sydney chef, confit of ocean trout with deep fried ginger on top, and it was matched to a famous champagne cuvée called Charles Heidsieck Blanc de Milanaise, another Blanc de Blanc style, but it was such a mouth explosion for me that all ideas of champagne and food pairing became very clear. It was incredible because one of the gingery taste and the crunch of the deep fried ginger on top was incredible with this really beautiful slow cooked confit of ocean trout.
I was thinking it was Tetsuya's, but it's not. Didn't have the ginger on it, though.
No, that's right. No, it was another Sydney chef for a dinner that we ran an award program for 45 years called the Vin de Champagne Award, and it was one of the gala dinners that we had. So I not only got to eat it at the gala dinner, but we helped sort of curate the menu and match it with the champagne. So it was one of those moments that I had.
Next one, biggest lesson learned on your wine journey?
Oh, so many lessons all the time learning.
Yeah.
Learn when to stop, I think is a really key one. Learn to eat something before you go to any wine tasting. I think that would be really, you see the result of this when it goes wrong. But I think try everything. I regularly hear people say, I don't like this or I don't like that. And I'm not that person. I like to try everything, any food, any wine. But I think, for food and wine journey, for a guy like me is to just try all the wines, keep your eyes open and see what the flavors and the tastes, where they take you.
Be open-minded.
Be open-minded. I think it's the best approach. And especially if you go to a big tasting or you're confronted by a lot of wine, then you can look at, everything, all the expressions. And I think Australia is one of those rare places where we have an established wine industry, yet because we're a young, innovative country, our winemakers are doing really interesting things. And I don't want to be that guy who says, oh, no, I don't like Chardonnay, I don't like this. I like all the wines, but I especially like to try everything.
I've got a bonus question for you.
Excellent.
Do you remember your first glass or first bottle of champagne?
Yes, I do. My first one was with some friends and, I knew Champagne. I visited Champagne when I was 18. I was very interested in history and I went there sort of for its World War I history. But I was so poor and I was 18 that I don't think I drank any champagne when I went there. But a few years after that, I drank it with some friends. And again, it was the company, it was the memory of those people and the good time that we had and the feeling that we were drinking something that was
from a place that you've been to, yeah.
From a place that I'd been to, but definitely it had the razzmatazz of more than what we were used to having. So.
Is that what wine is for you, though, more so than the wine's about the memories and connections?
Yeah, I think so. And also the stories behind it. Because I think, and again, for pointing at champagne again, I think that, it's a handmade product. So the human is behind it. A creative person has put it together using their skill, using their knowledge. And I think even in French, there's a great expression, the savoir-faire of winemaking, I think is really clear in champagne. And even though today we're just drinking one style of champagne, because there are other great varietals in it. There are a lot of expressions in it of the winemaking, of the terroir, but of the human hand that's in it. So
that's the rapid fire questions. Thank you.
Okay.
And you have been alluding to the fact that there are a couple of bottles, 3 bottles of champagne that you've brought in, which we're very fortunate to try. These are all from different houses, different vintages, but they're all Blanc de Blanc, which is all Chardonnay.
Yeah.
And while we're asking questions, we're going to open them up and try it.
Right.
But we are going to ask a few things to kind of help demystify wine and hopefully convince our wives to enjoy wine. First question around your journey and your role as part of the director of the Champagne Bureau Australia. So firstly, your love for champagne specifically.
Yes, no,
Where did that
I
come
love
from?
champagne. I love it for its taste. I like the effervescence. I like the effect. Some people, might refer to it as the original party drug because it's, the bubbles in champagne can express the alcohol into your system from your palate through your throat. So it doesn't make you feel good fast. So it will do that. And I really enjoy the taste and the occasions to drink champagne. More and more I get into the food pairings because I think that a really successful food pairing is a marriage that actually improves both. So a really successful food pairing for champagne, not only makes the food taste better, but I think it also elevates the champagne. Sydney rock oysters, for example. Yeah. If I'd bought my sack of oysters over my shoulder this morning, this would be the type of wines that I would drink with that kind of food, but other things too, like fish and chips or any kind of.
Feels like champagne, from our experience as well, is very versatile in terms of pairings. Was it that very first champagne that you had that made you go, I want to work in this industry? Or was there a particular thing that made you go?
No, I worked in the fashion business, I would say, more than anything else. I went to art school, so I didn't study wine or business or anything like that. So I ended up working for a company called Giorgio Armani, worked in the store and then did public relations in the public relations office for them, and then worked as a freelance fashion stylist for a little while, and then ended up working at Vogue Australia in the fashion office. So I went to a lot of parties and functions. And from there, I think my appreciation of champagne really hit overdrive. Really, really enjoyed the taste more so than any other wine, more so than any domestic sparkling, which I could taste the minute they would turn the champagne tap off. I'll just drink the water. But I came around to it more like that rather than a student of wine, say, for example. And then I worked for the Bureau, or we were called the Champagne Information Centre, and the previous director or directrice, Elizabeth Drysdale, I worked with her on and off for 14 years since 2001. And then after that, I was public relations manager for a group of hotels in Sydney, including the Centennial Hotel in Woollahra, which is like a champagne hotspot, if you can imagine.
Eastern suburbs.
Eastern suburbs of Sydney, right in the heart of the beating heart of the champagne-fueled eastern suburbs of Sydney. So I did come around to it less from a wine perspective and maybe more from a luxury perspective, which I still think champagne of as a luxury good.
It's a different type of haute couture than high fashion.
Oui, bien sûr. What a great analogy to it, because there is a lot of elements to it that you have to be very well trained to. I mean, you have to be trained and certified even to prune the vines in the vineyard. So every part of it is regulated. But haute couture is much the same. Has a lot of rules, has a lot of regulations to produce a really beautiful product at the end.
It's a very different journey. I'm guessing you mustn't have thought that when you're working.
No, I never, ever thought to be. When people ask me still, do you work in the wine industry? I have to think, and I go, oh yes, I do. Of course, that's right.
Well, it kind of says, like, if the organisation you work for is the Champagne Bureau Australia, it kind of spells it out.
Yeah.
For our listeners and our viewers out there, can you spell out what's the role of the Champagne Bureau?
No, exactly. And I did go off topic there, I think, for a minute. So the Champagne Bureau is the translation of Champagne Bureau, if you wanted to be correct in French grammar, is the Bureau de Champagne. And it literally translates to Champagne Office. So this means that we are the office for the appellation of champagne, or specifically the Comité Champagne, which is the regulatory body of the champagne appellation. So Comité Champagne represents all the players or actors in the champagne business, but I think of it more as an agency for the two main departments or two main actors that are in the champagne business: the vignerons, who are responsible for 90% of the grapes that are grown in the Champagne region, and the houses or maisons, who are responsible for, I think it's like 85% of all champagne exports. So we have two groups that have different objectives, but the overarching objective of my office is to look after their interests in Australia, the 7th largest market for champagne in the world.
When you say vignerons, are they the growers that people refer to?
Yeah, the vignerons. Yeah, so both of them have agencies that represent their separate interests. So the growers are represented by the syndicate, or the SGV, Syndicate Général de Vignerons, and that organisation does a lot of research and development about the vineyard, the practices, the analysis of terroir, and the other agency is the Union of Maisons, and that's the organisational body that represents the houses, or Grand Marques as they used to be known.
It feels like it's a dream job for a lot of people.
It's unreal, can I tell you? And sometimes I still can't believe some of the things that we see, some of the people we get to talk to, including you guys. It's amazing. But yeah, it's incredible. And it's so rare. There are only 11 offices in the world. So there are only 11 people in the world doing what I'm doing. Like sometimes it's quite different because I'm contractually obliged. Why I'm so difficult to ask what my favourite wine is. I think I'm contractually obliged not to have any opinion about any wine. So we are neutral in a lot of our, we don't express opinions or anything like that. But some of the progresses and the developments in the Champagne appellation, even now, I'm astounded that I have the insight to go there and hear what they're doing, hear what they're working towards, their development towards sustainability and future-proofing their industry is really like a benchmark, like an example that a lot of wine regions or organizations could take a lesson or two from.
What is champagne then?
Yeah, well, champagne's a sparkling wine, but not all sparkling wine is champagne. I think that this is the absolute key to know, because one of our roles in the market is to protect the name and its reputation. So we do fiercely guard the use of the word champagne, but it is because so much 300 years of history has evolved to develop this product that has a name of where it comes from. So a lot of the protection issues that we face are more about education. So Champagne is a sparkling wine from the appellation of Champagne, which is a region that represents 34,200 hectares, has roughly 16,000 growers, 340 houses, employs, I think, 30,000 people. There's all kinds of statistics of what it represents to the French wine market or the export market for France. But it is a sparkling wine that is meant to be enjoyed and brings pleasure. So at the base of all the rules and regulations, it still is a handmade wine that can make you feel good.
And this is probably a good example
Great
of
example,
that.
Yes.
I was saying it's a Pommery.
But say whatever
correct pronunciation,
Yes,
John.
No, you were almost there, but I think a lot of Aussies do call it Pomeroy.
Yeah.
I haven't heard it called this, but it's Pommery,
Yeah.
and it's a family name. So it was founded in 1868 by a Madame Pommery, and Pommery and Grenault was the company name.
Yeah.
It's hundreds of years of history. One of the most famous names, I think, in the Champagne appellation, based in Reims, or if you're English, you say Reims. So it's based in Reims, and where Pommery is on the hill of Saint Nicaise is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So it's in 2025, it's the UNESCO World Heritage listing of Champagne, which is directly derived from the hillsides, houses and caves or cellars of Champagne. Pommery is in Reims in one of those sites. And Saint Nicaise was a famous, he was a saint, so it doesn't get any more famous than that. But he was the Bishop of Reims who took on the Vandals, who were a Germanic tribe of invaders, and tried to stop them from entering the church, which he did. They killed him, but apparently even the legend goes he was reading a psalm during the invasion, and they chopped off his head, but he continued to read the psalm. I don't know if that's why he was made a saint, but he's a very famous and was I think a monastery or a famous church in Reims. I don't think it's there anymore since the French Revolution, but very famous name, Pommery. This one actually is, I think, one of their newer cuvées, Épernay Blanc de Blanc. I think it was a real passion project of their winemaker, Clémence Pierre, who's been the chef de cave since 2017, but has worked at Pommery since 2010. And this is I think one of the first Blanc de Blancs they've ever produced. But it's, as an example, we're going to talk about the trends of champagne. Yeah. This is I think a great classic example of what a Blanc de Blanc can be. Champagne is a blended wine, so it's blended from a number of different areas or terroirs. Different grapes can go into it, although this one is 100% Chardonnay, but it's blended from 17 different Grand Cru villages across the Montagne de Reims and the Côte de Bar. So it's a blend of all the best aspects of those two sub-regions within the region of Champagne. 4 main sub-regions in Champagne, but these two, the Montagne de Reims and the Côte de Blanc. And I think it's a very well-balanced, very elegant style of Blanc de Blanc.
We've got to give it a try. As you're pronouncing
about
it's
so boring compared to tasting it.
I was thinking it would be good for the director of the Champagne Bureau of Australia to show people how to properly open a champagne bottle. If you wouldn't mind.
Of course, yes.
I don't know if there's any specific tips or tricks about it.
I think always open at the last minute. I think it's one of those things that is, you bring it out of the fridge and you open at the last minute to maintain the effervescence. But when you're doing it, you have to open the bottle safely, which is the use of the thumb and the twist action and turning I always hold mine at like a 45-degree angle because it increases the surface area and slightly reduces the pressure. But I always turn the bottom of the bottle and and never face it at anyone, which I potentially did just then.
Oh,
like that.
That looked easy.
Yeah.
Pop or no pop?
Well, up to you. A pop is an indelicate, inelegant pop is potentially the sound of a party starting. There's all kinds of language around the soft opening, which is a slightly more elegant approach to opening a bottle. Up to you. Once you decide to.
And you mentioned before, how much atmospheric pressure?
6 atmospheres of pressure in the bottle of champagne, which means this is the same as the tyre on a bus. Yeah. So all of that pressure is, every bottle of champagne is made inside the bottle. So all of that effervescence that comes from the fermentation that happens, secondary fermentation in the bottle, is all compressed inside.
Yeah. Got it. I'm so happy that you showed us how to do that because I don't do it exactly how you do it. And we were discussing earlier, the safety aspect to this is quite key. So kind of holding the cage and the cork. Yep. So important.
Yep.
But also we've got the glasses here in front of us. I'm just going to show this on camera as well. We know that there's been a lot of discussion about the type of glass that you should use when drinking champagne. And when you brought these out, I thought that this was a flute, and I was wrong. What kind of glass is this?
I would describe this one as having a tulip shape because you can see the bottom of the bell is slightly wider than the top. That just condenses the aromas into where you're smelling them now. But this is the classic Riedel tasting glass. But the tulip, the idea of a tulip shaped glass is just that the bell or the basin of the bottom of the glass is slightly wider than the top. So you can see all different variations of it. But I think of a flute as having really straight sides.
Yeah.
And being really, really long. And it keeps the bubbles in. If you're having a party, it keeps the bubbles in for longer. But I think that if I was tasting champagne, I like the style of this glass and the shape of it.
Yeah. You mentioned before Blanc de Blanc.
Blanc de Blanc,
yes. A lot of people go, I don't know what Blanc de Blanc is. Yeah. What is Blanc de Blanc?
Well, Blanc de Blanc means white from white or white wine from white grapes is exactly what it is. It's qualitatively, we do a lot of market research in different markets, and in Australia, qualitatively, a lot of people give feedback that this is their favourite style. Maybe a lot of people just like that freshness on a hot day. It's very refreshing. It's very light. It's got all of the citrusy notes, white flowers, very delicate kind of wine. But potentially consumers don't even know what it means, and it might just sound like a fancy term that they like the sound of in their champagne. So
just so I know, what are the other styles?
So other styles you might find, Blanc de Blanc is one made from usually from 100% Chardonnay, although we have one example that's made from other grapes today. Blanc de Blanc, Blanc de Noir, which means white wine from black grapes, and those grapes would be Pinot Noir or Meunier, which are the other two grape varieties that are mainly planted in Champagne. You get vintage Champagne, which is wine from a specific year, and we've got two examples of those here. Rosé Champagne, we sort of hinted at this earlier, is a whole category on itself. Every producer will make a rosé champagne, and they can be from 100% Pinot Noir, 100% Meunier, 96% Chardonnay, and every different blend of those grapes to have a different characteristic. Rosé champagne with meats is a unexpected thing, but because if it's comprised of Pinot Noir, it has a lot of body and structure, so it is a wine that can pair very well with those types of food. But then even above and beyond that, categories that we even look at are Prestige Cuvée, which is the best Cuvée a champagne company will make.
Okay.
But the predominant one, I should not say it, 90% of our market is Brut. So Brut is a legally defined term of the dosage. The dosage is added at the very end of champagne production, and it's a mixture of wine, still wine, and sugar, just to bring balance to the wine. And Brut means between 6 grams and 12 grams of sugar per litre, and it makes 90% of our market, and it's what everybody knows champagne as, the brands, Brut non-vintage. Okay. It's the style.
So there's three kind of types of champagne, which is Blanc de Blanc, Blanc de Noir, and Rosé. And the Rosé could be a different split of more Chardonnay, less Chardonnay, and I guess the Blanc de Noir is a bit more bigger, robust type of
Somebody
champagne.
once said it was champagne to have in front of the fire, but it because of the black grapes, like Pinot Noir is a very well structured wine, so it has a lot of those capacities. But Meunier is a very soft fruit, has a lot of soft fruit characteristics, so it has a different kind of expression, and you can try different foods with it. But just even between those two and any blend of is another whole characteristic of the expression of champagne.
Yeah. And then there's non-vintage, vintage, and then Prestige Cuvée.
Prestige Cuvée, yes.
That's the three?
Yes.
Okay, got it. So what's the difference between vintage and Prestige Cuvée?
Prestige Cuvée will be made by a company in a really specific way or from a specific part of their lands, usually very, very rare. They'll have a really specific expression or a reason why they're produced. Like some companies produce a Prestige Cuvée in honour of someone. Some Prestige Cuvées are an expression of a specific terroir. Certain companies, the word clos means a walled garden. So certain Prestige Cuvées may have that clos de something in the title. They come from a really specific place, and their price is usually really, really, really high, but they have really, really limited availability. And quite often some of the Prestige Cuvées sell out even before the launch of the Cuvée in Australia.
So a Prestige Cuvée doesn't have to be a vintage from a year?
No.
And a Prestige Cuvée and a vintage?
I think it mostly is, though. I think it's an expression of something that the company wants to showcase the best of the best that they do, whereas vintage is an expression of the year. Yeah. So when you look at different years, for example, we've got two different vintages here, 2016, 2018, both completely different. Yeah. So only 2 years apart, but even the volume of champagne that was produced in those years is completely opposite. And the flavor profile of the wine is impacted by the weather, by the rain, by the sun.
So whether you're a champagne house or a grower, it's still the same categorization between, okay.
Yeah, and all the rules apply. So non-vintage champagne must be aged for a minimum of 15 months after it goes into the bottle for the secondary fermentation, and vintage champagne is minimum 3 years. However, most companies age it for longer than that. Like even our 2018 release has been in the bottle for 6 or 7 years, and 2016 is a recent release as well, been 2 years longer.
So why does it have to be in the bottle for so long?
To allow for autolysis. So autolysis is one of those, one of the reasons why it has to be in the bottle for so long is for the autolysis to take place. And autolysis literally means self-destruction, and it's the amino acids of the dead yeast cells actually dissolve the yeast cells itself. So the wine develops a lot more toast and brioche notes, and over the time that it spends in the bottle, more and more of this autolytic character is revealed.
So from this wine, I get a crummy, shortbread kind of crummy flavor. I feel like that's the autolysis potentially helping with that.
Yeah. Toast and brioche are words that you would use to describe Blanc de Blanc style, and other notes might be citrus or grapefruit or white flowers. But this one's a blend of 17 different terroirs. So it has a lot of blending goes into it to give this profile.
So in wine these days, a lot of it's about single vineyard expressions of terroir. Yep. Do we still get that with champagne?
Yeah. Well, this is we're talking about trends and maybe the idea of a trend in champagne. I mean, the average time it takes to make a bottle of champagne is 3 to 4 years. So trends move very slowly. But this idea of mono cru or single vineyard really are emerging now. And a lot of companies are looking at this expression of their wines. And we've got one really clear example from one single village coming up, but it is something, it isn't what champagne is mostly known for. Champagne is mostly known for being the Brut style, Brut non-vintage. Each company will try and make, using the raw materials of a vintage year, to create something that has the same taste. So a Brut non-vintage style, if you buy whatever label you like to buy, you'll find that the winemaker's mission is, and it's one of the hardest wines for them to make, but their mission is to make it taste what you think it will taste like. So every year with the different materials that they have, they make a certain style by blending all the different grapes, all the different terroirs, all the different years into a wine that in 4 years' time they hope will taste what they want it to taste like. So
you might have already answered already, which is time. But why is champagne so expensive?
Well, one of the reasons business isn't my background, but if I had a product that I made in say 2018 or 2016 and I didn't sell it until 2025, says that my investment in holding onto that product is quite some time. So champagne is a handmade product. A lot of hands touch it. And as well, in Australia, we're suffering. Anybody who's going to Europe will know that the exchange rate is hard at the moment. But also, since the COVID-19 pandemic, there was a lot of shortages in champagne or in most wine production, cork, wire cages, labels, a lot of the actual materials used in glass. Every bottle of champagne is made in the bottle. So the price of glass has gone up. Everything has gone up, I guess, in the last few years. But it is one of the reasons why it's so expensive. And, half of a bottle of champagne is tax. Yeah. So, import duties, wet tax, GST, things like that. So
it's the government?
No, it's not the government. No, it's not the government. There's a lot of factors that go into making it, the price that it is. But it is expensive to make. Yeah. And these producers do hold on to their stock to give it the characteristics that it has for longer, potentially, than other wines. I mean, in Australia, we drink very young wines. Yeah. So one of the things that is different in Champagne is the they're still youthful and fresh, but it might take 10 years for the winemaker to be happy to release it onto the market, and that all has a cost.
It's artisans creating a very specific product.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we'll probably move on to the next champagne here. Pierre, Gimonnet and Fizz, is that how you'd say it?
No, that's not how you say it. I mean, you're welcome to say it any way you want.
Oh, it looked like it was easy to read. But
yeah. Gimonnet, Pierre, Gimonnet et Fizz, which it means and sons.
Well, I would never have guessed you pronounce Reims as Reims.
Yeah, no.
So I'm happy to be corrected. That was still processing in my brain. And maybe, Trent, did you want to try and unravel that?
No.
I'll do the last one and ask some more questions while you're going on. Part of the challenge for me when I look at champagne is like, there's so many champagne houses.
310 champagne companies exporting their products to Australia.
Yeah, and then I think, how are we making it easier for our consumers to work out which to buy? And you were talking there about non-vintage, vintage, Premier,
Prestige.
Yeah. And so I'm like, is that the classifications? Like if I think about Burgundy, are there certain classifications around Regional, Village, Premier Cru?
Sounded all
well
right.
Done. Well done.
The pressure's on.
So yes and no. Yeah. Yes and no is the answer to that question. Yes, there are villages or cru within Champagne that are classified as Grand Cru or Premier Cru. Yet this system this classification was really came to an end in 2001, was operated between 1911 and 2001 as a price guide for grapes. So Grand Cru was 100% of the price that was set each year of the grapes, because your village was situated in the perfect location with just the right amount of sun aspect, just the amount of your microclimate had just the right amount of rain. Premier Cru was, I think, between 90 and 97% of that. And then below that was Autre Cru or Other Cru. And that's now, in the last years of it, it was 80% ranking of the grape pricing. But due to the European Union, the pricing or the fixed pricing of grapes was not permitted. And so this system was abolished. So what the producers of Champagne felt, though, was that these words, Grand Cru, Premier Cru, were great historical references for the quality of the village or the vineyard, and were permitted to put that name on the label. It does represent a great quality villages. There's 17 Grand Cru and 44 Premier Cru. So it does represent a great historical knowledge of the quality of where that village is. I think, the first one that we had, the Pommery that we had, 17 Grand Cru villages the grapes are sourced from. This one, Cuvée, Special Club Cuvée, is a Premier Cru village. Yet the work of the vigneron in the vineyard and their exceptional vineyard practices, and the 2018 is a famous year as a vintage of a generation. It was so good and abundant. The rain fell when it had to fall. The sun shone when it had to shine. So even though this village is Premier Cru, which may be considered a slightly different rank to Grand Cru, it's an excellent champagne and really reflects the terroir where it comes from. I always think of this champagne as being produced by Didier and Olivier Gimonnet, but now their respective sons are involved with the production, and that is Arnaud and Pierre Guillaume. And the wine production of this one is even a little bit more interesting, because you might notice on the front of the bottle, it has the word Special Club. This is a very special bottle under the Special Club label. The club itself was founded in 1971, and it's a group of around about 30 vignerons who, during a vintage year, produce a champagne specifically to reflect its terroir, the quality of its terroir, the uniqueness of its terroir, and each wine has to be approved by the committee at the still wine stage, and then after the secondary fermentation before the wine is released. So they have a special shaped bottle to identify it, but the members produce the wine not just for its quality in a vintage year to celebrate that, but it is its unique reflection of the terroir. And Cuvée, if anyone knows Cuvée and the Gimonnet family, this is where they live. So they have about 30 hectares in total, and I think about half of them are in the village of Cuvée. And this cuvée is only produced from that village. It's previously where they produce all of their champagne, maybe their non-vintage styles. They will always use the grapes and the wine from the Cuvée vineyards in their blends. But in 2018, they considered it such an incredible year that they felt that it deserved this special club style of treatment where it was celebrated for the reflection or the expression of its terroir.
So this is a grower's champagne?
This is a grower's champagne. Récoltant manipulant is its technical title.
And I noticed that across the three bottles, like the bottles all look different. Like I know with like Burgundy or Bordeaux, there's always a similar bottle shape, but for champagne, there's no rules about it.
No. Oh, like I think like this is a 750 ml bottle, and like each producer will use a bottle for a specific reason. Like their shape is not just their image, but a lot of the quality, because each bottle of champagne is made in the bottle. So each producer will choose a shape for a specific reason. This shape was really designed to identify it as being different. This is one of the first ones that's come out in its new shape. It had a slightly different, fatter shape previously to this. But even the colours of the glass. So this is brown, that's green and clear. It could be a decision that you made for your wine.
Which makes me think about, how do you store champagne?
Well, how would you store it?
I don't know. Do I just stick it in a wine fridge just like still wine?
I wouldn't, like a wine fridge at 14 or 16. Yeah. So there is no evidence that storing it upright or on its side makes any difference. Don't flip it up and down, I think, continually so the cork will dry out. But there's no evidence that storing a bottle of champagne on its side is any different to storing it upright. So, but just the constant, in Australia, we have a real battle with the temperature. So if you have varying temperatures in your house, don't store it on the top shelf of your kitchen if it's going to be 30 degrees or 12 degrees in its lifetime, because that is quite an extreme temperature difference. I mean, you will lose some delicacy, but it shouldn't really affect it. But I keep mine I have a wine arc, and I keep most of my bottles, if they're not in their box, I try and keep them upright just for space. But it's, I think, constantly between 16 and 17 degrees. But I think it's more than just the temperature, it's the consistency.
Yeah. The other build on that one is, how long can you keep champagne for?
Well, that's another thing. So in my educational material, which I bought for you here, we've got all on our website, champagne.fr, is this little picture. It's so simple looking and describes the flavour, aromatic profile of each grape varietal, but then also for the number of years that the wine develops. Because bottle age actually is quite interesting with champagne, because the cork, although it stops the liquid coming out of the bottle, it allows for constant exchange of CO2 and O2 with inside and outside the bottle. So you can find it goes all the way through to these flavours. And this one here goes 6 to 8 years after its release, but you can keep champagne for as long as anything.
Because you see sometimes people have like a 1960-something champagne.
Yeah. But it won't taste like this. Yeah. So a lot of the flavors, like tobacco-y flavors, toffee flavors will come out. If you're a champagne nerd especially, this is something that you might get into. But you need a lot of resources. Yeah. You need to have the space to keep it at a consistent temperature for years and years and years. And even if you're drinking a 1988 something or other, it won't taste how it tasted in when it was released. It'd have a whole different other profile. It would be less effervescent, very, very gentle bubbles. But if you are really into the taste of champagne, this is an area where you could get right into. Yeah. However, champagne is designed to be drunk when you buy it.
Yeah.
So what happens to it in the bottle is something you can play around with. And if you've, again, got the budget to buy a case of something amazing, Chardonnay will age beautifully like Chardonnay does. Yeah. Pinot Noir, again, will age really beautifully. Meunier, there's some experts who say it doesn't have the propensity to age as well as the other great varietals. But if you were to pop any of these, especially this 2018, into the cupboard for 6 to 8 years and keep it well, you would find a much more aromatic complexity, a real depth of flavour, very different to the wine that we're drinking today.
Okay, very cool. Does it fall over after a certain time? There is a kind of peak and then it falls over?
I don't know.
What's the oldest one that you
Yeah, no, I don't. Well, 1975. 1975, I had the brand of champagne that was served at the wedding of Lady Di to Prince Charles.
Oh, wow.
And my great friend Bernadette O'Shea in Brisbane served at a very special dinner where we all shared really old bottles that we had. I didn't, because I didn't have so many old ones, but with a group of people who collect these types of wines. And it was incredible. But was it the pleasant, elegant, delicate flavour that this is? I don't think it was that. It was really interesting to see the evolution of it. But it's just something that if you're into, but even if you're in Champagne and you're on the VIP list, a lot of people will ask you what year you were born, or maybe pull out a Cuvée, because even some of the maisons on Avenue, if you go to Avenue Champagne, for example, some of those maisons that have been there for hundreds of years have wines that date back to the first years of the 20th century. And it's they probably won't open those for you, but it is something, those wines haven't moved from there. So they've had no impact of transport. They've had no impact of heat or light or anything like that. They haven't seen the light of day for 100-something years. So
I'm going to take a tangent. If I was going to visit Champagne,
yeah.
You said Avenue Champagne, which is in Épernay.
Épernay.
But you also mentioned Reims.
Yeah, Reims. Yeah.
Like, where do I visit? Like, do I go? We went to, I can't even say it, Reims.
Yeah.
But we've never been to Épernay. Like, I don't know. Like, have I missed it?
No. So if you look at the map, if you look at the map of Champagne, you can see that it's 34,000 hectares spread over a large area of land. Yeah. There are 4 main regions or sub-regions, but that's just more to understand it. So if you were to go to Reims, you get great hotels, great restaurants. It's quite a big city. A lot of producers there, a lot of the main producers there. It's on the north side of the Montagne de Reims, so a lot of the smaller villages you can get to by car. Pinot Noir is the style that you'll find a lot in these parts of Champagne. Just further south over the mountain is Épernay. Reims takes 45 minutes on the train from Gare de l'Est. Épernay maybe an hour, because you come a slightly different route through Ayala, La Montagne, like all of these cute villages, and you can get off and stay in any of them. Yeah. But Épernay is slightly different. It's a much smaller town. It's got so much champagne production for its size. Some of the most famous companies are based there: Moët Chandon, Perrier-Jouet, but also other companies that you've never heard of. So Avenue Champagne is literally Champagne House, and all of them have started to really clue in to tourism and hospitality. So a lot of them will have bars in the front. And even the SGV, which is the syndicate of vignerons, they have a boutique. So you can do a tasting of 3 different champagnes you've never have heard of before. Very reasonable. They sell 100 different types, like 100 cuvées, 100 different types of champagne. Yeah. But this is just that's only 2 parts of it. So you can go further out into the Marne Valley, into some of the producers have accommodation. Some of them have festivals in their village. If you head further south along the Côte de Cézanne, which is sort of where Côte de Blanc, the southern end of it, it's a whole different other feeling, because a lot of the vineyards are south facing, so it has a slightly maybe sunnier, different feeling to it. Further down to the Côte de Bar, which is the part of Champagne that's maybe 2 or 3 hours away. It's incredible. Whereas Reims might have been bombed almost into the Stone Age during World War I, Troyes and the Côte de Bar was relatively unscathed. So a lot of the chateaux and maisons are really beautiful. The city of Troyes is like a medieval dream. It orange and yellow and pink. It's absolutely beautiful.
And they've got a factory outlet there as well.
If you're French, that's what it's famous for. Yes. If you're French, they produce a lot of clothing in that area. So this is where a lot of the factory outlets are. But it's near a part of Champagne that's you have to see to believe, called Montgueux, and it's too small to be a sub-region, but too unique to be linked to any other region. And it's the 10 or 12 million year old older chalk than the Côte de Blanc, and it's a tiny little mountain and it's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. Oh. He got too excited.
I obviously didn't do that.
Yeah, no, likely.
How do you avoid that? So for people that may not have seen, I was trying to quietly open up the bottle of Ayala beside you.
Well, I would have held it more at an angle to kind of increase that surface area. Yep. But I did. This is again one thing I try never to do. I would have delivered this wine to you maybe the other day, but I try not to just clink it along and then expect that it's going to act in any rational way. But it just shows that it's a very lively drop.
Mm-hmm. I wasn't trying to interrupt you.
No.
Well, but with that, I do want to take it back to the original question that I had around how do we make it easier for consumers? Because there are so many different champagnes to choose from, and if it's not about those classifications and that more represents traditional quality of grapes historically, how do you make it easier?
Well, I think a lot of Australian people make decisions about champagne with regards to the brand. So if there's a colour of a label that they like, or a red stripe, or flowers, or something that means something to them, that may be impact their champagne decisions. So if that's you, if you adore a specific kind of brand, try another cuvée that the company makes, because if you like that style, you potentially will like something else that they do. So if you like a Brut Non Vintage by any company, they will more than likely do a Blanc de Blanc. They all do Rosé nowadays, which is incredible, or a vintage. Like vintage is actually a really interesting area. I went to a dinner the other night, same thing. Person said, I don't like vintage champagne. That blew my mind, because I thought, well, if there's over 300 companies sending their champagne to Australia and they all do vintage champagne, they're all different. And they're each different every year. So I was like, well, how can you say that? Like, how many have you tried? Because that in my brain is hundreds to make that kind of decision. But I think if you do love a brand, or if you love the style, and we did one thing that I'm responsible for is education. We have amazing resources online to do different tips and tricks, and maybe there is an opening the bottle session for you that you could look into.
I'll look at that after this.
And we also work with Sydney Wine Academy and the Adelaide Wine and Spirit School to actually present a champagne specialist certificate, so you can go and become qualified in champagne. But some of the education that we do provide to restaurants, junior wine teams and things like that, is to actually look at the label. So if you're looking at the label, there's a lot of information on there. And you may be, obviously the most important one to have on there is the word champagne, because it indicates that it's from the appellation and is a certain quality. But on these ones, you'll find the words Blanc de Blanc. You might find words like Grand Cru or Premier Cru, but your, vintage years, where the village or where the town of where the wine is located. So if you like a certain style and you read that the brand is based in Reims, you might be able to work out that, through a map or something, that villages around Reims might be interesting to look at for your champagne. But just try it. Like, it's not going to be unpleasant.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to have a bad time if you open a bottle of champagne and it's different to the one that you really, really liked and you only really liked this one.
Yeah. It's really funny because we went to the Taste of Champagne event and Trent and I had a laugh before we went in because we'd never gone to a champagne event before, and we said, I wonder if they're actually going to taste any different, because isn't all champagne going to taste very similar? And our mind was blown because actually, it is different. And it comes down to vintage, it comes down to the terroir, it comes down to how they're making it. And so, okay, I get it. It's kind of like associate with a brand, and if that's the brand that you like, then good. Otherwise, give it a try and then
explore from there.
From there.
And something like Taste Champagne is a sensory overload.
Yeah.
So I mean, I can't remember how many people participated in this year, but it's almost too much to look at in one area. But even the styles that you see within a framework like that, you can see the grape varieties, what difference it makes, but also the winemakers.
Yeah.
So it's quite often, there's a brand manager there telling you what the winemaker was thinking when he made the wine, and every single one is different.
Yeah.
So, our expression is like this, and this style is like that. We use oak, we use a concrete tank, we use the clay amphora, we do stainless steel. So all of those elements of the grape varieties, the wine production technique, but this idea of savoir-faire and the human hand is almost limitless.
There was a lot of people and a lot of different wineries represented. It was a fantastic way for us to understand the differences, and that's where I kind of cemented my interest in Rosé champagne, for example. They did have Ayala there, if I'm pronouncing Ayala correct, I hope so. And did you have something interesting to say about this?
So this are really Ayala from Aï. So the town it comes from is literally AY, and this is the family name of Edmond de Ayala, which is purely coincidental. There is no relationship between the name Aï and Ayala, but Ayala is a company that was founded in 1860 in the town of Aï, and a lot of people maybe think of it as a newer brand because they haven't maybe heard of it so widely as other brands that we know. But it's a champagne that's been coming to Australia for since it started. So the first evidence I found of Ayala coming to Australia was 1876 or something, which is pretty much, potentially one of the first cuvées that they produced was coming to Australia, and not just one or two bottles, but 130 cases of it came to Australia when Australia was a very rich country due to the gold rush that was happening here. But it has a very long history in Australia. But I think it's mostly well known for its dry style. It was one of the early champagne during its 300 years of history has been a very sweet wine, effervescent wine, also now a very dry wine. Our modern palates really look for the drier style, and Ayala was always the champion of this dry style of champagne. But even now, they never have more than 5 or 6 grams of sugar per litre for dosage. They really do capture the elegance of Chardonnay. This Chardonnay is their specialty.
Yep.
But this wine, interestingly, from 2016, is a Blanc de Blanc style, but is comprised of 50% Chardonnay and 50% of something called the heritage or forgotten grapes. So Arbane, Petit Mesler, and Pinot Blanc is the other 3 other white grapes in Champagne. So it has a really, I saw your face when you tasted it. It's really different from the other wines.
It smells and tastes different.
Smells and tastes very different, and I think even different characteristic in your mouth, different mouthfeel. The forgotten grapes quite often, like even Arbane, nobody knows where it came from, and it may actually be indigenous to Champagne. But they're hard to grow. The grape bunches don't ripen evenly. They're hard to press, got thicker skins. But the Arbane and the Petit Mesler are for the acid in this wine. But the Pinot Blanc is for the aromatics and the sort of dried fruit characteristics. So it has a really different flavour profile than the 2 others. with those grape varieties, even though they are white grapes. Do you like it or not like it?
It's different. I'm thinking about it. It has a kind of, I know, slightly more kind of funky, but I put kind of like a pomelo drier, but it feels tighter.
Yep, dried fruits, yeah. Mm-hmm.
It feels like this is classic champagne as I think about it. This is kind of narrowing it, amping up it more, a bit more crisper, tighter, cleaner. And this is another level kind of up.
Well, I think that's a gold star definition of these three wines. And if you were to break it down to, I was very interested in talking to wine experts such as yourself.
No, not at all.
So it's professional wine experts. But I'm always very interested in the why. Yeah. So I think all of those tastes are A-grade, gold standard descriptions of what this wine tastes like. And if you were to look at each style, when you said the first one was a classic, to me that is, it represents, if it's 17 vineyards, the best vineyards that they have access to, the best grapes they have for to go into this blend, that to me is a wine producer's classic, best tasting, freshest tasting Blanc de Blanc available in our market. I bought it at the Kent Street Cellars. I think it was $109 retail price. So nowadays market, that's pretty reasonable for me. The next one is the Pierre Gimonnet, is literally from the middle of the Côte de Blanc, from one single village, based on a substrata of pure chalk. So all those mineralities, all of those, that tight, linear mineral taste that you're getting is literally where that wine comes from. And they live there, and it's like the heart of their business. And one single year, so it's an expression of the year. Tight is, we serve this. I have a really rare opportunity once a year to go to something called the Naruma Oyster Festival. And this wine's making my mouth water even thinking about it. This wine was one of the absolute talking points of our tasting this year, because with a Sydney rock oyster, and it's mostly, master class is mostly for oyster producers, so oyster farmers, people who market oysters, the Appellation Oyster Company, like people who are working within the oyster world come to this masterclass, and they know how, they call it terroir, so the terroir of the marine environment, how it can affect the taste of an oyster. The sun, the rain, the water flow, everything can affect the taste of an oyster. But they thought champagne was one homogenous, non-vintage thing. So, but when we showed them this wine, light bulbs went off where they go, wow, this has minerality. This has this really precise, delicate, absolute freshness that was really, we showed 5 different champagnes, but this one was the absolute talk because it was so different from what they were expecting. But then if you were to move over to the Ayala with more of it, they've only produced 7,000 bottles. They've only produced this type of cuvée 4 times in their 100 and something year history. So it's a really rare champagne. Even with the 2018 and this 2016 collection, once they're gone, they're gone. You'll never find them again. It will never be the growing conditions of that year. It's really rare, but it's a really different wine. And even when we've tasted it before with professionals, funky is actually something that they've used to describe it, because it is quite unexpected. It looks like a Blanc de Blanc. It's got that beautiful golden colour, but it has a different quality to it that those grapes and the hand of the winemaker. Ayala is really interesting because they have 120, they do micro vinification. So when they make the first wine, before they put the wine into the bottle to make champagne, they have 120 separate tanks. So every tiny plot of land of wine gets vinified separately from others. And then when they bring all the blend together, they absolute precision in what they do. But it's those grapes that add that complexity to it. And whether or not you like it, or if you would prefer 100% Chardonnay as an actual personal preference, but it is something that I think is interesting to see. But I think your analysis of the taste there is accurate.
I actually thought the funkiness, as well as those autolytic flavors, were more pronounced purely because it was a bit older. It was a 2016.
Yeah.
And that's what stood out. But when you said that there was actually different grape varieties in there that aren't the common ones, they're kind of the hidden ones for champagne.
So they're so uncommon that all 4 varieties of the heritage or forgotten grapes, because there's 7 permitted grape varieties in Champagne, but there is now one experimental one that has been planted as of 22-23. But out of the 4 heritage grape varieties, Arban, Petit Mesler, Pinot Blanc and Pinot Gris makes up less than 1% of the total surface area of Champagne.
Yeah.
Less than 1%.
Which makes it even more special.
It's so rare. It's so rare. You would really it's the only bottle that I have of this one.
Wow. Thank you.
that I brought in for you to try. But I knew you would get a kick out of seeing something a bit unexpected. And this, I think, if we were pointing at trends in Champagne, this is actually what is becoming more and more prevalent. Prestige Cuvée is super in demand. It's super hard to get. It is 1% of the volume of our market, but 5% of the value of it. So that maybe represents how expensive it is to buy.
It is like Grand Cru Burgundy in a sense.
Yeah, well, that's it. It's in demand. It's hot. If it's a company that's really, really hot, it will sell out to its customers before it even gets here. So it will. It's a really in demand for a really top end client. Like not everybody can afford hundreds of dollars for a bottle of wine, but a champagne like this is a special one that is not at the Prestige Cuvée level, but it is something that the winemaker has had a passion for. And that's when people ask why they made this year, is that the winemaker felt that this wine was an expression of the vintage and something that was a representation of their house style. So it's a creative savoir-faire, creative element. Also, the raw materials and the quality of them for the year allowed them to make this style of wine.
You mentioned trends, consumer trends, Prestige Cuvées. What other trends are you seeing at the moment in the market?
Rosé is the one that's growing. It's like the slow achiever.
Love Rosé.
Yeah. I think, we have to do one sometime, but it's the slow achiever in our market because it's the professionals are telling us that it's a harder sell to the consumer. It's more expensive because there's an extra process that usually goes into the making of it. They have to make red wine, or they have to allow for contact with the grapes, or there's an extra process that goes with it, which means that the wine is more expensive. But also the style of it is misunderstood because Australians love French rosé because it's so light and so fresh. And there are champagne rosés like this style, lighter, fresher, mostly Chardonnay, great for a hot day. But there's also other ones that are Pinot Noir dominant, great with food, really well-structured wines that maybe have a different application than that. They're still good for an aperitif, but they might be a different style. But the market in Australia declined in 2024 by 17%, which is one of the biggest declines that we've had in the last 25 years. If you look at the graph for Australia, though, right up until 2022, our market grew between 6 and 10% every year. So we literally were the big growth market in the world. But in the last 2 years, I think for economic reasons, the exchange rate, the price, etc., means that the market share itself has declined, but the proportions have remained roughly the same. And Australians drink Brut non-vintage. That's the style that we all love with a brand that we know and recognise. But within all of that, all the other movements are happening. Rosé is the largest. Brut Nature, which is the lowest category of dosage, it has been growing, like doubling in volume for the last 3 years. It halved in 2024, mainly because a lot of importers are consolidating what they're doing in the slightly more challenging market and focusing on what they're selling more of.
I think another consumer trend is I find sparkling and food go extremely well. I think we always shied away with champagne being more of an aperitif or something like that. Whereas now pairing with food and like even the KFC or chips or something like that.
I've got a local. I'm so fortunate to have a local Korean restaurant called Sang by Mabasa, and they do a KFC, Korean fried chicken, and they allow BYO. and it is the most incredible pairing because it's got a bit of heat to it. Like it's not a traditional fried chicken. Actually, it's a bit spicy. And if you were to have your Pinot Noir dominant rosé, that freshness and vinous quality with that just slightly hot, spicy fried chicken, the flavour is incredible.
We've got our next episode locked in. Let's go there. That sounds great.
Well, it's an amazing. It's literally like a mum and dad operation, and it's like I think 16 people can sit in there. So I did a media lunch there a few years ago that went very well. But the menu was just outstanding.
We're towards the tail end of the interview, and it's I think the producer is going to kill me because I do want to ask some more quick questions.
Okay.
But these are quick, right? We want to do some champagne myth busting.
Yep.
So I'm going to say a statement. You say fact or myth, and then one sentence explanation.
Okay.
Let's see how we go. Champagne should be drunk with a strawberry inside the glass.
No, main reason is the wine is fully developed and the strawberry is another acid source. Yep. So I think that those two things conflict. Although if you are having rosé champagne for your dessert and had a beautiful berry compote or a berry-themed kind of style dessert, this would pair quite well because of the berry nature of the rosé style Pinot Noir. One of the characteristics is red fruits. So
only with fruits.
Well, up to you. Like you could do it, but I wouldn't stick it on the glass. No.
Next one, and you've answered this already, but I just want to reconfirm. Champagne makes you more drunk.
No. And my organisation specifically, one of the key objectives for us and our corporate and social responsibility is to ensure that champagne is consumed responsibly for everyone. It doesn't make you more drunk, although the bubbles in the wine will contain alcohol, or the bubble is made from wine. So it will allow alcohol absorption into your system from your palate down to your throat before it even gets to your stomach. So there is a more expedited absorption of alcohol. However, we would encourage responsible consumption. So therefore, no to being drunk.
Got it. Grower champagne is a poor man's champagne.
No, I think this is a mischaracterization of the 16,000 growers in Champagne, and I think 600 of them produce champagne under their own name. Some of them have been on the land because one of the rules behind grower champagne is that you must source grapes from your own domain and elaborate or make the champagne on your own premises. That's one of the two key things that have to happen. They have smaller marketing budgets because they're generally family-run operations. But if you imagine that someone has been working their land potentially for hundreds of years, understanding every aspect of it, it's an area of Champagne that potentially has more nuance. And I mean, there's some incredible, world-famous growers, but there's also new generations of growers coming every year where families are passing on their land and their business to the next generation. And so you've got a whole avenue of new producers, new creators, new visions of how champagne will taste like in the future. So I would say no.
That's a myth.
To that.
Yeah. Last one. When we had Mark Balderston on, he wasn't a fan of French fries and champagne. He's more of a traditionalist. Is it a myth or is it fact that champagne and French fries go well together?
So I have to say I have an allegiance to the French fries because it is one of my favorite food groups. And but one of the things I think, before you make an assertion that anything goes with anything else, one of the key rules for matching champagne and anything are those ingredients, are the sort of carbohydrate, the fat, and the salt. When you think of champagne as a very acidic wine, some people like French fries for champagne, that's okay. But it's no reason to say it doesn't go or does go. But those three elements, even potato crisps, bread and butter, will go with some champagnes. And I saw your episode on Vegemite, and there's a sommelier in Sydney that told me that cheese and Vegemite toasties with Pinot Noir dominant champagne was her favourite thing. So I think it depends on the person, depends on the taste, depends on the rule. Yeah. But champagne is a very diverse style of wine. If you don't like French fries, don't eat them. If you like Chateaubriand, have that instead.
But I'm taking that as fact then. That's fact.
That it does or doesn't?
It does.
Well, up to you.
You can't be on the side.
I always order French fries when we go to a restaurant and I have champagne. But I have no opinion on anything, but that is what I always do. And we had a dinner a couple of weeks ago at the Builders Arms Hotel for champagne importers, and I asked them to exchange the mashed potato for French fries for our communal dinner for 20 people. So
got it. No opinion.
I think I think fried food and champagne just goes well together.
I feel it's a recipe for success. But if he doesn't like it, I'll defer to he's a wine professional of great standing. So if he doesn't like it, that's up to him.
I got one more myth to ask him. Finer the bubbles, the better the champagne.
Well, this actually could be a sliding scale for you, because sometimes you find in really, really old champagne a tiny, tiny last gasp stream of bubbles. Usually the bead in champagne is very fine compared to other sparkling wines from anywhere in the world. But I had one this week, which was a new release from a company. And I did notice that when the glass was poured, because there's two different types of bubbles in a glass of champagne. There's the first bubble release when the wine is expelled from the bottle into the glass, and then the effervescence explodes. And then there's the gradual dissolving of CO2 liquid into gas as the wine sits in your glass. But what I noticed in the first pouring of it, or the first moment that it was poured, the bubbles were actually quite big. This could be any reason. So bubbles are formed on the dust or the texture of the glass. So it could mean a number of different things. But I don't know if I would hang my hat on that particular myth and say this is that. The bubbles are usually fine, but I wouldn't say it was a reflection on the quality of the wine, because this bubbly champagne, it was beautiful. So. But I might just ask the executive producers wine just permission for one final thing. And so Australia is the 7th largest market for champagne in the world. Champagne is imported here. We have a terrific wine industry, but the passion for champagne is still growing. The first champagne that we had to show the long-standing relationship of champagne and Australia, this champagne from Pommery and Grenache and Company was served in 1888 at a dinner in Sydney in Prince Alfred Park. There used to be a specially built building for the 100-year anniversary of the foundation of the colony of New South Wales, which then became Australia. And this champagne was served at a dinner to mark that occasion. So champagne is a wine that we drink here and enjoy in our hot weather with the different foods that we eat, but it is a wine that I think culturally we have come to accept as something that we enjoy ourselves as Australians. So it's not just an imported wine. I think it is actually built into the fabric of who we are.
And it's not just for celebrations as well.
No, it's not just for celebrations. It can be for any reason, like any day of the week reason. But it does make an impression. And you can celebrate happy things, like getting your driver's license, things like this. Or you can celebrate sad things and remembering people in a special and marked way. For whatever reason, like I think you can celebrate with it or remember things with it or mark an occasion, or you can just enjoy it.
And that takes us to the end of the interview. Thanks for coming on. If we think about reflections, Trent, did you have any last reflections?
I think, after the Taste of Champagne event where the first time trying so many champagnes, it really kind of opened my eyes up. And you mentioned like 16,000 growers, 240 houses. I don't know how, if I drank one every single day, I still never get around to every one of them. Like, I feel like it's just a world that's still untapped, and it's an endless discovery, I think. So thank you for just helping us on that journey.
That's right. Just one little tiny element of what champagne is.
Thank you.
Yeah, I feel like we've covered so much in this conversation. You've taught us how to open and not open bottles correctly.
Well, you were the evidence of that.
That's right. That's it was good. All for the episode. Yeah. But you talked about the different terroir, the different domains, the myths and the definitions. There's so much to unpack with champagne. But I kind of feel like if you pare it down to just the tastings that we've had, it's delicious. It's delicious to have. And for those that are avoiding it, such as my wife, I implore everyone, give it a try.
Give it a try.
Because there's so many different types of champagnes that you could have. And one of those you're probably going to like. We know it's going to go well with KFC. So
both Kentucky and Korean.
Yeah.
both of them. That's how versatile it is. John, thank you once again for coming on.
Thank you so much.
If anyone wants to find out more about the Champagne Bureau, the website, what's the website?
So, our website is champagne.fr, but if you are interested in champagne education, we have one called champagne.education as well, which has lots of quizzes and technical information and details about where our champagne specialist program is in Australia.
Yeah. It's definitely got a lot of detail out there. I was looking at it, and you can even get certified online if you.
Yeah, there's an online course that you can do.
Yeah,
or there's the specialist program which goes for 4 weeks plus an exam at the end.
Perfect. So check that out. For our viewers and listeners, put in the comments below what your favorite champagne is. That's us here at the podcast. As we like to say here,
drink more, try more, learn more.
Thanks all.